until the 2024 NFL Draft, which means Cowboys Nation, go ahead and get ready, get excited. We've got a lot coming for you right here on Building the Board. Welcome into Building the Board. We're going to be addressing 6 key positions this offseason for the Dallas Cowboys in need for this year's draft. And right now, to help me talk about running backs to kick off this season, we've got Patrik "No-See" Walker joining in studio, looking fresh. I mean, can we just admire the fit real quick?
Oh, thank you. Takes one to know one, and here's another one.
I mean, what can I say? What can I say? I'm just trying to get like the veterans this offseason and free agency, right? I mean, hey, I'm trying to get like you. I mean, the veterans was getting paid this offseason, and it just kind of made it seem like the running back draft class just wasn't as talented, right? I mean, there was a sense of urgency with a lot of teams trying to get a running back on their roster. What can you say about this talented running back draft class? Because, I mean, there is a lot of talent in this class.
There is, and it works in the Cowboys' favor, Nicole, that so many veterans flew right off the board in free agency. Now, still some names to monitor, guys like J.K. Dobbins, and, of course, don't forget, as I reported mid-March, possible reunion with someone like Ezekiel Elliott. But none of those moves would preclude the Cowboys looking at taking a potential running back in the draft. There are going to be names that you hear like Jonathan Brooks, Braylon Allen, our good friend Nick Harris. He's going to break down guys like Bucky Irvin, Trey Benson, and there's a list of guys at the position the Cowboys are hosting at official 30 visits, so keep your eye on that.
Where does a running back position fall as the position of need for the Dallas Cowboys compared to the others?
Oh, it's right up there. I mean, for me, it's right up there behind only linebacker. Cowboys are going to have to figure out linebacker. That goes without saying, but the running back role, you lose Tony Pollard 1 year after parting ways with Ezekiel Elliott in the first place. That leaves you with Rico Dowdle, who's shown some flashes in his first full year as a healthy running back, but behind Rico Dowdle, you have a lot of young, unproven talent. Hunter Lipke, Deuce Vaughn, Snoop Conner, who was brought in, Malik Davis. Yes, there's some talent there, but it's unproven, and that's not something you can necessarily rely on quite yet.
Where do you see the first running back fall in this year's draft?
It's going to be interesting because a lot of teams are going to go more so with offensive linemen. You're going to have some wide receivers fly off the board. Quarterbacks, obviously, they're going to fly off the board in the first 10 picks. Depending on what that QB run looks like, that's going to determine how far the running backs fall. Cowboys will have an excellent chance of getting a dynamic running back if they wanted to go at 24. I, for one, think they would be better to stand pat, maybe trade back, but it's going to be a early day two pick, I believe, is going to be when the first real running back goes off the board.
A lot of excitement to look forward to for the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL draft. But we've got Nick Harris to go ahead and break down some players of interest for the Dallas Cowboys. Go ahead and take it away, Nick Harris.
Appreciate it, Nicole. Let's take a look at these running backs in this draft. These are some of the guys that will probably go there on day 2. I agree with Patrik. I think that first running back probably doesn't come off the board until the 30s there once Friday night gets going there in Detroit, Michigan for the draft. Let's take a look at some of these guys. We'll go ahead and start off with Trey Benson out of Florida State. He was an Oregon transfer, tore his ACL in his freshman season at Oregon, but made the move to Tallahassee. He's one of the bigger power backs. He's going to bring you a little bit more size, more physicality there in those running lanes at 6'2", 216. Let's take a look at what he brought for the Seminoles over the course of his career there in Tallahassee. We'll start here with him on the left side next to Jordan Travis. And he'll go through the C-gap on this play, but watch his field vision. He ends up coming back to the left side, wrapping around the offensive line. This is what has made Benson so special. This is what makes him a big play type of back, to be able to find that running lane and end up on the left side of the field to score the touchdown there against Miami. Big-time play there for Trey Benson. It was what helped power the undefeated Seminoles there in the regular season, was the running game for him. Next guy we'll take a look at is Bucky Irving. Now, if the Cowboys, they're looking for more of a more physical back, more of a bigger body, this might not be the guy that they're looking for, but if they want a big play type of back, this might just be the dude. 5'9", 192 pounds. So again, doesn't bring a whole lot from a size perspective, but he's able to use a lot of that towards physicality. Let's take a look at this play from the Fiesta Bowl that Oregon won against Liberty. He's going to take a counter here. You see all that left side preparing for him to come through, but he takes off through that B gap. And whenever he fires through, we're going to look at field vision once again. He's able to slide back to the left side of the field. Look at that quick cut ability in the middle of the field. Able to make defenders miss. It looks like just a completely gunned down area across the left side of the field. He doesn't quite score there, but he gets enough to the 1st and 5. Oregon does scoring on that drive. Really big play type ability there for Bucky Irving. A lot of great guys in this running back class. I think there's a really good opportunity for the Cowboys to strike either in the 2nd round or in the 3rd round. They'll have plenty of options whatever they decide to do.
Nick, I've got to ask, you talk about both of those guys, Trey Benson and Bucky Irving, big play type of guys. How much of a hole will you feel like that will fill bringing on a guy like that?
Yeah, I think having that big play type of ability, we didn't see that a whole lot from Tony Pollard last year. I think there were some really good things that Pollard did on the back half of the season last year, but being able to break away those big runs. We saw the big reception that he had against the Chargers. He had a big touchdown run against the Panthers, but to be able to have those 50, 60 type yard runs, those big plays that we got used to seeing when Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard were a 1-2 duo, we didn't quite see that last season. I think either of those guys bringing that into the building, that'd be big time.
I've got to ask the hard one. If you have to choose between those two, which one are you going with?
I'm probably going with Benson. I want a little bit more size. I think he's a little bit more reliable in short yardage packages.
All right, now Patrik, you mentioned a couple of other guys, Jonathan Brooks in particular. Can you talk a little bit about him and what he could actually bring to this Cowboys roster?
Yeah, absolutely. Keep an eye on Jonathan Brooks. Again, as I mentioned at the top of the show, this is a guy, he's Texas-born, Texas-bred, and he's a Longhorn. But more importantly, although he suffered the torn ACL, his procedure to correct the torn ACL was done by Dr. Dan Cooper. Guess who? The head physician of the Dallas Cowboys. So you can right now draw a direct line from Dr. Dan Cooper and the Cowboys to Jonathan Brooks. He's a little bit of a bigger back. He's more of a do-it-all kind of guy. His footwork is absolutely elite. The only other red flag is that little bit inexperience. He has a full-time starter under his belt, but only has 1 year, so that affects his decision-making. But I believe that with more reps, more experience, he can be one of the better running backs in this class.
He does get praised, though, for his intelligence, though. I mean, where would you rank him amongst other running backs in this draft class as far as football IQ?
I think his football IQ is up there with the best of them. Keep in mind, this is also a young man who learned behind the likes of Bijan Robinson, Roshan Jones. They were able to get things going for the Texas Longhorns, and once those two top backs went, the question was, could Jonathan Brooks step in and be that guy? And guess what? He stepped in and he was him. So the only knock on him is the torn ACL, but as Nick Harris has stated, you can come back from a torn ACL at this position. It's just a matter of having it done the right way, and Dr. Dan Cooper always does it the right way.
Nick, I've got to ask you about this guy. Not much has been talked about him. Braylon Allen out of Wisconsin. What have you seen from him? What do you like about him?
Yeah, you're talking about a big body.
Yep.
I don't think there's a bigger body you can find in the draft. 237 pounds is what he played at with the Badgers last year. He has 4 years of experience coming from Wisconsin. And let's talk about the pedigree at the University of Wisconsin. Guys like Melvin Gordon, Jonathan Taylor coming out of that program. And those were guys that played deep seasons there with the Badgers there in the Big Ten. Then you look at the next line, and it's Braylon Allen. And what he brings from a short yardage standpoint, I think that's exactly what the Cowboys would be looking for. But if they need that big play type of back that I was talking about earlier that they didn't really get at times last season, Allen might not be your best choice. You would probably need to complement him with a scat back that can have a little bit more big play ability, a little bit more receiving ability, and that's probably where you would fall on the trust of Malik Davis, Deuce Vaughn, et cetera, and the guys that are in that running back room.
And it does feel as if the Cowboys are looking for a tandem. I think they learned the effectiveness of Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, and then when you took that particular dynamic away and it was Pollard and Rico Dowdle, the skill sets were a little bit too similar. So if they were going to go for a power back, like Nick Harris said, you're hard-pressed to find more of a true power back than Braylon Allen. It's a 3-time All-Big Ten talent that you're talking about. True goal line guy, true guy who can get it done in the A gap, the B gap. He does the heavy lifting. So maybe you tandem him with Rico Dowdle. You ask him and Deuce Vaughn to do some work together. Hunter Lipke, the fullback who was a rookie last season, showed some promising signs. Malik Davis, he still has some go as well. So if you're looking for a true power back to kind of get back to that Ezekiel Elliott / Tony Pollard tandem, Braylon Allen might be your guy.
Are there any other guys that could fall maybe day 2, day 3 that the Cowboys could potentially look at?
Hey, man, don't get me going on my pet cat, Isaiah Davis, out of South Dakota State, 6'2", 220 pounds. He had 1,400 yards in each of the last 2 seasons for the Jackrabbits, back-to-back national champions in the FCS. I love what he brings to the field. Also, Isaac Garendo from Louisville. He was a 10.52 100-meter runner in high school, won 4 track state championships in the state of Indiana. He brought that speed to Louisville, and he was able to pair it with Jawar Jordan, who's another day 3 option at running back for the Louisville Cardinals. But I think Garendo brings that speed and also a little bit of physicality in between the running lanes.
If you're in a perfect world, right, you're Jerry Jones, who are you going with the running back position?
Yeah, that's in a perfect world.
Perfect world.
I guess you would look at Jonathan Brooks and you would see what he brings to the table, but you kind of worry about the injury. You don't know what that's going to look like until you get him in the building. If you're falling on reliability, then probably Trey Benson is your best effort just to be able to get a guy in who's had 900+ yards in each of the last 2 seasons. But don't sleep on some of these other guys at the top of the board. I think there's going to be some really intriguing options. You look at Jalen Warren out of Tennessee. He's another intriguing option. There's going to be guys there on day 2 that they'll be able to choose their pick from.
If I'm Jerry Jones, then I know that I like to roll the dice.
Okay.
And particularly when you're talking about the second round history of the Cowboys drafting, and they love to roll the dice in the second round specifically. And where did we say that some of the top running backs might go in the 30s, top of day 2? Jonathan Brooks, I think, is well packaged for what the Cowboys need. He's an all-around back. He can give you power. He can absolutely give you agility. He can give you the ability to receive out of the backfield as well. And if you had any concern about his medicals, your head physician is the one who did the surgery on his torn ACL. So you have an inside track that the other 31 teams do not have. So if I'm Jerry Jones, I think Jonathan Brooks is the call.
Yeah, not to pop your balloon, but something to keep an eye on. The Panthers did host Jonathan Brooks for a 30 visit, so that they have 33 and 38 there in the draft. So just keep an eye. Keep an eye.
Carolina.
Hands off, Carolina. A lot of intriguing options, a lot to look forward to for the 2024 NFL Draft. But that's a wrap for this first episode of Building the Board. Nick Harris, Patrik No C Walker, Nicole Hutchison. We'll see you next time.